Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer. This video is the top 20 books I read during 2025, but with a twist. The twist is I'm not going through ranking them from the least favorite to the most favorite. So I'm not going from number 20 to number 1. What I'm doing, I'm speaking about the books as I read them during the year in reading order. And then my list progressively changes in real time depending on where that book is in the list at that point in time as well, that point in time during the year. So for instance, the first book I speak about will be number 1 on the list, but not for the whole video, or will it? We won't know. That book may be number 1 for the whole year, or it may shift down in the list as we progress through the video. We just won't know until we speak about all the books what is number 1. So a bit of a twist on the usual ranking video, I know. I hope you enjoy it. I wanted to do something different this time, something not usual. To help you out in this video, each new book spoken about is highlighted in blue on the list. To give you more of an understanding where it sits on the list overall at that point in time, I'll show 5 books on the screen, with the most recent book spoken about shown on the screen as well. So you get an understanding, somewhat where that book sits at that point in time in the video. So maybe you'll understand, straight away if a book is not going to be number 1, because it may be number 19 or number 15 as we get through the video. But a bit of excitement because you don't know until we get to the last book in this video what's really number 1 for the year. Before I start, I'll give you in general terms what I ranked some of the books. I'm not going to tell you through the video what I ranked each book, but you may get an understanding of that as we progress through the video. What I will say is, throughout the year, throughout the whole of 2025, I had 14 5-star reads. And then I think it was 3 4.5-star reads. And then for the last 3 books in this list, I had to choose 3 books from all the books I rated 4 stars. I found that very difficult because I had quite a few books that I rated 4 stars, and many books deserve to be on this list. So it was very hard to choose which 3 books to put in the last 3 spots on this list. So maybe I'll do another video that is, books that just missed out. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll do another video of worst books for the year, I'm not sure, but generally I don't like to do videos about worst books, but maybe I should, because it seems like, there are lists like that out there and many people watch them, so I don't know. But anyway, this book is the top 20 books for 2025 that I read. Hope you enjoy it. Let's go through now. The first book on this list I read for the year is Big Little Lies, written by Liane Moriarty. Now, I enjoyed this book very much. Of course I did, it's on this list, so I have to stop mentioning that in this video. So I'll try not to mention that in the video from now on. Anyway, this book. This book just has great characters. It's very character driven, but it's got a great mystery as well. And one thing about this book is I don't usually like the structure where a book reveals something that's going to happen later on in the story. Could be something big, usually is. And it's to, entice the reader to keep reading, to say, this is going to happen later on. Now let's go back in time, whether it's a few months or a few years, whatever. Then we go through the book until we get to that moment, again, that big event. Now, I don't like that structure usually, because I usually think, what's the point? Why, give us, forewarning about what's going to happen in a story? I don't understand that. This book did that, but I didn't mind so much because this book is so well written. It's so well plotted, so well structured, the characters are brilliant. And the way it progresses with the secrets and just the social structure in this book as well. We have a social hierarchy of parents and a school, and they compete for power and influence. We have people leading ordinary lives, and what I mean by that is we have these characters in this book doing small things that seem very mundane, very minor in their lives, but they're just interwoven into big things as well. And I enjoy that in this story because it makes the characters feel very grounded and very real. This book to me was just perfect with characters and the mystery and the structure. It's quite near perfection, I think. Deserves to be on this list very much. Of course, Big Little Lies is in first place, but it's still early days. June, written by Frank Herbert. So of course, sci-fi royalty. Now I read this during the year It was a reread for me. I read this many, many years ago. I do want to read all the books in the Dune universe. I like this for many reasons. It's a true space opera, a true sci-fi opera. I enjoy this because it's not just about spaceships and battles and things like that. It's about politics. It's about, people trying to influence things. It's about deceptions and betrayals. It's about drama, about many things. It's got religion and prophecy and all different things in this book as well. It's about many things and many themes. And I like that in this book. I think Frank Herbert did a great job of just bringing in so many things and making this world in this book just feel so real. And of course, it's meant to be our world, but very far in the future. So you've got to put things in there that ground you in our world so you can relate to this book. And this book does that very well. And when I think of the spice in this book, that spice trade, I often think about things in history, in Earth history. Things like imperialism, about imperialist nations trying to compete for and control certain rare or expensive products like spices, like minerals, that sort of thing. I think of that when I read this book. I also think of, those trade routes like the Silk Road or maritime trade routes, because the spice trade in this book is kind of like that, but in space. So I think of those things as well when I read this book. I like the adventure. I like the thing in this book, the concept of fatalism. Is Paul Atreides following a predestined path? Does he have free will? That's a big theme in this story. I like that because it makes you think about life in general. Some people think people are fated to do certain things. Some people think there's total free will. So you've got all that going on in this story as well. This book deserves to be sci-fi royalty, deserves very much to be on this list. Dune takes an early lead, but 18 books still to go. The Boy Who Killed Demons, written by Dave Zeltzman. YA horror. Not just horror though, it's a coming-of-age story, and it's just a great narrative voice in this book. This book feels like you're in the mind of a teenager, it really does. And so many authors age children and teenage characters well above their years in books, but this book grounds it like it's a teenager. You're really in the mindset of a teenager when you read this. I like the coming of age aspects in this book as well. I like the fact it's not just about horror and demons. It's about teenage life. So the main character in this book, he's just dealing with being a teenager, with school, with parents, with friends, with a first girlfriend, all that sort of thing. Then he deals with seeing demons for the first time, or what he thinks is demons. He's wondering, is he going crazy? Is he really seeing these things? Then he has to learn more about them because he's sure they're up to something dangerous and deadly. So he's got these competing things going on in his life. And those things just bring humour into the story. They bring a great narrative point of view. There's cynicism, there's sarcasm, there's really pointed descriptions going on in this book as well. I enjoyed this, of course I did. I have to stop saying that, I know, but this book was just great. This book, if you like horror, even if you don't like YA books in general, I suggest read this because it's just so refreshing, I think, to have a book like this that brings horror and demons into a story, but it also grounds it in real teenage life. It looks like this book can't be number one, but it could still make the top 5. Jennifer Government, written by Max Barry. So, this is speculative fiction. So it's Earth a few years in the future. It's a future where those rewards programs, so consumer rewards programs, basically rule the earth. They run everything. In this book, there's two huge companies who control competing rewards programs. And part of this story is about marketing and trying to get more control, all that sort of thing. Then part of it, of course, is a chase to catch people who are responsible or partially responsible for the deaths of other people. This is where Jennifer Government comes in, the character. She works for the government and she's trying to track down these people who are responsible for the deaths of other people. It's all linked to marketing and things like that. I enjoy this because there's great world building, just the environment is so immersive, and there's great ideas in this story. The idea of consumerism ruling everything. Well, you can imagine that anyway, because huge companies nowadays just have so much control and so much power. So it's easy to think that in the future, this may happen. Who knows? One of the interesting things in this story is people's surnames. It's basically where you work. If you work for McDonald's, your surname's McDonald's. If you work for Nike, your surname's Nike. Jennifer works for the government, her surname's government. All that sort of thing. So that's part of the humour in this story and the world building. I enjoy this. It's fast paced. It's got great action. It's got great characters. The characters sometimes are a bit stereotypical or a bit farcical. They're also in a bit of a satire thing going on about, marketing, about the government, about policing, all that sort of thing. This book is just exciting. It's got a great adventure. It's thrilling. I enjoy this so much. Jennifer Government slips into the top 5. Many more books still to go. The Thin Executioner, written by Darren Shan. So it's YA fantasy. I think this book is very special for a few big reasons. One is the characters. So character growth and development in this book is just outstanding, especially the protagonist. He's so real and lifelike and believable, and his growth and development in this story as the book progresses through his adventures, I think is just remarkable. It just hands down some of the best development in a book for a character I've ever read. So basically what it's about is this character called Jebel Rum. And he thinks he's weak. He thinks he's not strong. He wants to be stronger like his father and his brothers. To do that, he decides to go on a quest. To go to a god in this land and ask this god for strength. Virtually everybody who goes on this quest ends up dying. So that's the rub. So if he goes on this quest, the chances of succeeding and living is not very high. And also, he has to take somebody with him for a certain reason. So he does that. And that person he takes with him, I think those interactions between Jebel and this person are just amazing in this book. That's where a lot of the growth comes from. And the adventures in this world, it's a very dangerous world. There are dangerous people. They have big things going on when they travel from country to country, all that sort of thing. And it just feels like such a well-plotted and well-structured fantasy story. This easily could have been a series. If this had been stretched out to 3 or 4, even 5 books, I think it would have been just an amazing series, because this book itself, it's very compact and so much goes on. A series could have just opened up more descriptions, more everything in the story. But anyway, this book is outstanding and amazing. I would read any books featuring the characters in this story or the world this book is in. I don't know if there are more like that out there. I'm not sure. I'm going to try to find out. But I hope if there's not, the author decides to write something more in this world. The Thin Executioner takes first place. Will it stay there? Who knows? 84 Charing Cross Road, written by Helene Humph. So it's non-fiction. It's basically letters between Helene and people at this bookstore in London. And one person in particular called Frank, but also sometimes other people Frank works with. I like this for quite a few reasons. One is it celebrates accidental friendship and the building of friendship. And I think that's what we forget sometimes in modern life, that you can meet people by accident and become friends. I think in modern life, we're very insular, I think, more siloed, more solo, I think, as well, because we can engage with technology and other things, and our lives seem very busy sometimes. So I think sometimes we forget that friends can be met by accident. Anyway, this book, I think, celebrates that. And it all starts because Helene sees an advertisement from this bookstore in London. And this bookstore promises that they can find out-of-date books, out-of-print books. And Helene wants certain books that she knows are out of print. So she writes them a letter with a list of books and some money and says, can you find these books? Here's some money to get you started. And it starts this letters and things going back and forward between Helene and this bookstore, and a great friendship between Frank, who works at the bookstore, and Helene herself. That just goes for quite a few years as letters are swapped back and forth. I just enjoyed reading those letters. I enjoyed Helene's voice in the letters. I thought it was a special book overall. The version I read also had a second book by Helene about her travels in London decades later. She went there in London after the bookstore was closed, unfortunately, after Frank had died, unfortunately. But I enjoyed both those books, but especially enjoyed the letters more. So for me, a great book. I think if you haven't read this, go read it. I even think a movie was made about this. I've not seen the movie yet. I will try to watch that movie at some time if I can find it, but this book is quite special. A non-fiction book slipping into the top 5 early on? Who would have thought? It's the only non-fiction book on the top 20 list this year. Something I Keep Upstairs, written by J.D. Barker. So it's horror. It has a great 90s horror vibe, a 90s teen movie horror vibe, if you like that sort of thing in books. And I do. This horror, this whole story, I think is quite exceptional. It's got great characters. It's got a small town setting. I love small town settings in any story, but in horror, I think small town settings work so well because there's kind of isolation in small towns, and there's more interaction between people in small towns as well. And the great thing about this book is that not all people in the town know about the horror, only certain people do. And that makes it feel more lifelike because that's what life is about, really. Not everybody knows what's going on at the same time. I think the characters are great. I think the whole structure of this book is great. The horror is quite exceptional. And in this story as well, there's a play on dimensions, on time, all that sort of thing going on in the story as well. So the horror component of this story is basically this teenage boy inherits an island and a house on the island from a dead grandmother. And when he goes there, it triggers all these events. It triggers these horror things going on. And the island and house, we find out, is quite dangerous. It's all linked to the past in a way as well. And then we have different people in the town trying to get control of the island for different reasons. And they've got their own motivations. They all feel very real, and it has different layers in the story as well. The two main characters being this teenage boy who inherits the house and his friend at school. They're great characters, written very differently, different personalities, different motivations, and because they feel so different, they feel so lifelike. They kind of feel like, why they're friends in the first place. They feel very different, vastly different, but you understand why they're friends as well. So that kind of makes sense in the book. But because they're so different and their viewpoints, outlooks on life are so different, it has conflict, different interactions between them in the story as well. All this has so many layers, so many things going on. It's a near perfect book in my view. J.D. Barker doesn't make the top 5, but could still hold on to a good position. Annihilation, written by Jeff Vandermeer. Sci-fi. It's the first book in the Southern Reach trilogy, which now has 4 books, so not really a trilogy after all, but anyway. This book is so immersive, so atmospheric, and so dark. For a novel, it's quite short. And the thing about this book is, even though it's quite short, there's so much packed in there, it feels longer. So essentially, we follow a group of women from different professions, and they're going to this area called Area X. This area turned up, out of nowhere on Earth, and it keeps growing slowly. Nobody knows where it came from or why it's there. But different expeditions of people go there over time. Some people may return, some not. If you do return, then after a few years, apparently you die anyway. But what happens in this story is we follow the latest group of women as they go there. We don't know their names, and that's intentional. We know their professions, so we know them by someone being a botanist or a psychologist, that sort of thing. That makes them feel expendable in the story. They're not worth knowing. It's not worth being personal with them because we don't know if they're going to survive. So that makes it interesting in this story because already you think, well, what's going to happen? The author doesn't care about them enough to give them names, tell us their names. Should we care about them enough? But we do because it's so immersive. You get inside their minds, what they see, what they feel, especially in this strange Area X, where it's very atmospheric, where it's almost like Earth, but just slightly different. And that an atmosphere, that feeling of dread, that feeling just it being a bit creepy, that kind of invades you as you read this story. So I enjoyed it for all those reasons. I thought it was very special because of the atmosphere and that dread and the fact that it sets up these characters to be expendable, but you can't help feeling for the characters, you can't help following them and wanting them to survive in this story. Annihilation reaches a good spot on the list, but there's many more books still to come. Anne of Green Gables, written by L.M. Montgomery. I thought this book was amazing, and I didn't know what to expect before I read this book. I didn't think I'd enjoy it as much as I did, and I loved it. The character Anne, now Anne with an E, don't forget the E at the end. She reminds you in this book it's Anne with an E. Anne is many things. She's exhausting, she's frustrating, but she's also joyful. She's also just a bit addictive in the story as well because of her outlook on life. She's so positive and so charming and just full of everything in the story. She looks at everything with wonder and with joy, and I like that in this book. I like that this book reminds us that imagination is one of the most powerful things we have. And with imagination, you can accomplish so much and you can achieve things as well. Believe in yourself, have imagination, and it just feels like in this story that nothing is impossible. And I like that message in this book. I think this is a book that everybody should read at least once. Even if you don't think you'll like it, give it a go, because I didn't know if I would like it, and I loved it very much. Not just about Anne though, many characters in this story are wonderful, almost all are. And there's great growth and development for characters in this book as well. Just so much goes on in this story that you don't think is going to be there, and everything about it, the scenery, the setting, the people, the interactions, the overall structure and plot of this book is just brilliant. A great story, I think. Anne of Green Gables grabs a good place on the list. Can this delightful book stay in the top spots? The Finer Things, written by J.D. Barker and Kyle Dunn. This is a horror and a bit of a thriller, and also a bit of a mystery, but it's a horror with a twist. And it kind of just blends all those things in a unique kind of way and makes this story remarkable for quite a few reasons. One of those reasons is with the characters, the main characters. We experience their spiral, their downward spiral into madness, and it feels very convincing in this book. It feels very dark. This book is also quite gory, but it's also that dark downward spiral that hooks you into the story because it feels so real, it feels so genuine, and it feels like you're really amongst that. It feels like you're immersed in that spiral as well. As you witness these characters just, getting worse and worse and traveling down those staircase into madness. I mean, that was quite remarkable in this story. There is a bit of a mystery as well, and a bit of like a cat and mouse game going on in the book. I enjoy that, as different layers in the book. So just not about gore, not about madness, not about horror. It's about different things going on, different tensions in the story as well, which I enjoyed. And also in this book, it's also about the art world. So it talks about the art world, and it's a bit of a satire, I think, on that whole world, on how we worship sometimes, or we just celebrate an artist or a certain type of art at one point in time. When we're tired of that, or when something new comes along that's a bit more shiny, a bit more new, we just cast that aside, cast the artist or the art aside. And it feels like what happens in real life, basically. Happens in all forms of art, in books, in TV shows, in movies, in paintings, in all that sort of art as well. So different art worlds, different constructs in the art world, that sort of thing happens. And this is given a spotlight on in this story as well, I think. That's what's part in this book. And that's what makes it so unique, I think, because there's so many layers in this story. And when you read this book and finish and think about it a bit more, you think of those layers and it all comes to life. It all comes to the surface. So for me, this is a quite extraordinary book because it has different layers and it makes you think. Even after you finish reading this book, you can't help thinking about it. Well, I didn't anyway. So for me, extraordinary for different things, and the characters, that downward spiral into madness, was quite well done. Other parts of the characters are a bit, shallow, I think, in the book. So some of the characters don't feel so deep in the story at all times. But that downward spiral into madness was very well done. The Finer Things doesn't reach a top spot, but it doesn't mean it will remain last on the list. So I've gone through the first 10 books out of 20 in this video so far. What's in the top 5 at the moment? Let's find out. Number 5, Jennifer Government. And number 4, June. Number 3, Annihilation. And number 2, Anne of Green Gables. And number 1, The Thin Executioner. We've gone through the first 10 books. Let's go through the next 5. After these 5 books, we'll have a look again at the top 5 list to see if anything's changed. Okay, let's get going. I'll talk about Let the Right One In, written by John Lindquist. This is a vampire horror, but a vampire horror that's very different. This book has so many layers going on in it. It's so dark. It feels very dangerous, this story. but there's so much going on that it's not just a horror. And I think the horror elements are quite minor in this story. So even though there are horror elements, even though it is about vampires and humans, it's not just about horror. The main parts in this story are about friendship, about isolation, about bullying, about feeling helpless and hopeless. It's about all those things. And they're all explored and explained in a very dark way, a very detailed way, but a very convincing way. The friendship between the two main characters in this book is remarkable. The way it's written, the way these two characters that feel very fragile, even broken, they're drawn together against all odds, it seems, into this friendship. That friendship doesn't feel strong all the time. It feels quite fragile, quite brittle. But those two characters are just amazing, and their friendship, that connection, is just very heartwarming in this story that's very dark and bleak and very gory and bloody and everything else in the book as well. With all this just awfulness going on in the book around these two characters, they find this small light, this small spotlight that shines on them when they're together. So for me, this book is just special for so many reasons. The characters in this book are just outstanding. The structure of this book is just so well done, and the fact the author doesn't hold back. The author's not afraid to go to the darkest places that you can think of, and he shows that in so much detail, and sometimes it's very uncomfortable to read, but it's there for a reason. It's there to show us that the world is dark, the world is dangerous and uncomfortable, and bad things do happen. So sometimes authors do need to take an unflinching look at certain things, that they can't worry about what readers will think about this and that. If it's powerful enough and it makes sense to the story, why not show it? And in this book, the author does that. So for me, this book is quite courageous for doing many things, but that friendship, that connection between the two main characters and what happens to them and between them through this book is just outstanding and amazing. Let the Right One In takes over position 1 on the list. There are still more books to follow. Can this book be beaten? Annie Bot by Sierra Greer. Now, this book is part thought experiment and part emotional gut punch. It's basically like reading Sleeping with the Enemy, but with synthetic life. At the core of this book are two characters. We have Annie, who is a synthetic life form. She's like a cyborg, but she's very human. She looks human. She thinks like a human. She feels like a human, but she's synthetic. And then the person who bought her, who asked for her to be created and kind of owns her. So in this world, in this book, humans own synthetic life forms. They buy them, get them created for different reasons, different needs. And those synthetic life forms have to meet those needs. They kind of have no choice. They don't have any free will. So part of the discussion in this book is about synthetic life and free will, synthetic life and ownership, that sort of thing. And it makes you think. As you progress through this story and you find out what happens to Annie, how Annie grows, develops, you wonder about that more and more. Should humans, if synthetic life ever existed like this, should humans own that life form? Should that life form be free, be like a citizen in the world? Should they have the ability to grow, develop, learn? Or should they be just constructed and programmed to be in a more strict way, be siloed in a way we want them to be? So for me, that was interesting in this story. Many things happen in this book. I won't explain what happens in this video, but many things happen to Annie and between Annie and her owner. And you have to say owner because in this book, that's what it is. He owns her. And he's very cruel to her sometimes as well. So in this book, it's not just about liking and owning synthetic life. It's about controlling them, about shaping them. And this human character, the main human character, thinks that that means being cruel. He thinks that Annie will learn better if he's cruel to her at certain times. So that happens in the story as well. So it's not always a pleasant read. When you read this, there is hope and joy in there as well because Annie develops and grows. And you wonder, will Annie ever escape? Will she develop? What will happen? So for me, that was the hope when you read this book. This book is quite extraordinary for that thought experiment. It is very emotional. There are things in here that not all readers will enjoy, so be warned. Do a bit of research before you read this, but I think it's worth reading. Annie Bot just sneaks into the list. but not in last position. War with the Newts, written by Karel Capek. I enjoyed this so much. I mean, it's a weird book, one of the weirdest books I've ever read, but it's so engaging, it's so compelling, and it's just so enjoyable. Essentially, when you get down to what it's about, we have these newts. Someone discovers these newts that are intelligent. They can learn, they can do things, they can use tools, they can develop and grow. And later on, I think they can even speak. After discovery of these newts, people think, well, okay, we'll turn them into a workforce. That just grows and grows, and things get worse and worse for the newts. And part of this story is about humanity, about history, about imperialism, exploitation, as humans seek to exploit these newts for their own gain and convince the newts they're helping humans to better themselves, to get rewards, all that sort of thing. Also, part of this book is about certain things that happened during World War II start happening to the newts. When you think about experiments on them and things like that to understand what makes them tick, that happens in this story as well. So there are so many things in this book that are about human history. And this author is highlighting the terrible things that humans have done in history and saying, here you go. The humans in this book are doing it again. And this is what's going to happen because of that. And things happen to the humans because of what they've done to the newts. I won't go into the details of what happens later on in the story, but this book is just engaging and just enthralling because those newt characters, I think, are wonderful. The satire in this book is just spot on. There's cynicism, there's humour, that historical outlook on humanity, and just highlighting, putting a spotlight on the terrible things humans do to each other or other people is just amazing, I think, in this book as well. It really kind of showcases this author he had a plan, he had a plot, he had a mission for this book, and this book succeeded in everything he wanted to do. I enjoyed this. I didn't know if I would because it just sounded so bizarre, but it worked, even though it's very bizarre. And the things in this book with those newts, I mean, they feel real because those newts feel human. And it makes you think about many things in this story as you read it. So for me, it's extraordinary for all those things I've mentioned. If you like the sound of that, if it's not too bizarre for you, I suggest go and read it because I think this book is one of those books where you'll read it and won't forget it for a long time. War with the Newts takes second spot at the moment. Will it stay in the top 5? Empire of the Vampire, written by Jay Kristoff. Now, this is vampire epic fantasy fiction. Apparently, that's a subgenre. I didn't know, but there you go. And this book is amazing. It is a long book. It's very epic. It's the first book in the series, and I do want to read the rest of the series very much. The world building and detail in this book is just amazing, and it's lengthy for a reason because there's so much world building and description and detail, it has to be long. The characters in this book are outstanding. There's adventure, there's danger, there's daring, there's battles, deceptions, betrayals. The author doesn't mind killing characters off now and then, even good characters and sometimes favourite characters. When I read this book, I had certain characters as I was reading that were my favourite, and I thought, well, that character's wonderful, that character's wonderful. Then later on, that character's killed off and that character's killed off. I'm like, I felt so disappointed when that happened, but it makes those moments, those emotional moments, bigger and better in the story. And I like when authors will do that because it makes you think, well, what character's next? You start to think, well, I don't want to get too close to those characters, but you can't help it because those characters are so wonderful. Then you start to feel for those characters and wonder what's going to happen. In the book, those characters are walking into danger, and you're thinking, please, don't kill that character off now, just wait a little bit longer. Sometimes that plea to the universe works, sometimes it doesn't. And I think books like that are quite special because I think sometimes authors, especially in books like this where the world's so dangerous, there's no reason why you can't kill off characters because it would happen in those worlds. If you think about real life, it would happen. So this book is extraordinary. It's very detailed. It's very dark. The protagonist in this book is just amazing, so complex, so conflicted. And I like the way in this book the protagonist sometimes just is driven to do something and sometimes just thinks, well, no, I don't want to do that right now. I want to go somewhere else. But he's kind of dragged along and forced to in a way. And I like that because it makes the character feel more complex and more real in the story, because he's not there to be a hero per se. He's there to help out in certain ways, even though he doesn't want to sometimes. He feels like compelled to help out, and you feel that in the character in the story. So for me, extraordinary for many reasons. I didn't know if I would enjoy this because sometimes paranormal fantasy fiction like this sometimes doesn't work. But this book worked very well. Empire of the Vampire doesn't make the top 5, but it could still keep a decent result. Murder on the Marlow Bell, written by Robert Thorogood. So it's a cozy mystery and book 4 in a series. I've been enjoying the series very much. I have not given each book in the series 5 stars. I think from memory the first book I did, and this book I did, but books 2 and 3 I didn't. But anyway, the mystery in this book is very well done. It's a locked room and closed circle mystery, and I love both of those types of mysteries in books, both of them. So a book has both elements in the one mystery and has to be special, but it needs a well-written book, great characters, great reactions, and a clever mystery. And this book has all of those things. The 3 main characters in this series are extraordinary. They have great growth and development. Even in this book, book 4, there's more growth, more development. And the cozy elements surrounding them. So in a cozy mystery, you need a good mystery and good cozy elements. You need both. And the cozy elements in this book are remarkable because it brings kind of more life, more construct to the 3 main characters as well. And they're all very different characters in this series. Different walks of life, different outlooks and motivations, different viewpoints, different strengths and weaknesses. They're very different. And those differences just make them feel like that connection between them, that friendship that's growing in this series feels more lifelike. And I like that in this book, and I like it in the series overall. The mystery, as I said, was very strong in this book. It kept you guessing, it kept me guessing. The clues are clever, the whole construct of the mystery is clever, and other characters coming in because of the mystery, well done and well crafted as well. A great series, a great book in this series. I can't wait to see there's more books in this series. And I think this series has a TV show now. I've not seen it yet. One day I will, I hope. But I think this series overall is extraordinary. Murder on the Marlow Bell, the only cozy mystery in the list getting a decent position. So I've gone through 15 books in total now from the list of 20. What's in the top 5 at the moment? Let's find out. Number 5 is Annihilation. Number 4 is Anne of Green Gables. Number 3 is The Thin Executioner. Number 2 is War with the Newts. And number 1 is Let the Right One In. Now on to the last 5 books of the list, of course, in reading order for the year. The book I want to talk about now is 640 to Montreal, written by Eva Jurek. This is a very clever murder mystery in a locked room with a closed circle in isolation. So I love all those things in mysteries. Locked room, closed circle, isolation. If written very well with great characters, great reactions and clever clues, a mystery with those components has to be fantastic. And this book is done so well. What this author can do very well is bring in doubt. Every character in this book has doubt surrounding them, even our protagonist. And I like that because it makes you think even the protagonist could be guilty. And reactions. Character reactions in this book just match the characters perfectly. And they're consistent. And each character in this book feels quite unique. The isolated setting works to the book's advantage. There are some over-the-top things going on in this book, but the overall book is written very well, so you can forgive part of that. But I just think the mystery, the protagonist, the viewpoints, that closed circle of characters, the locked room component as well, and the isolation, it makes this book compelling, totally engaging, very mysterious, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat because you don't know what's going to happen next. This is very cleverly done, and this author, I think, just writes characters very well and writes doubt very well. I did read a book by this author, might have been 1 or 2 years ago, and it had the same kind of thing, where there was doubt around all characters, even the protagonist. And I think this author just does a great job of that overall. I can't wait to see if there's many more mysteries for this author in the future, because if there are, I have to read them all. I just have to. 640 to Montreal. This clever mystery gets higher than last place. The Secret Garden, written by Frances Burnett. So, another book where I didn't know what to think before I read it, but I'm so glad I read it because this book is just remarkable. It's so joyful and so full of wonder and so full of growth, development, and hope. The three main characters are young teenagers, I think, and that growth, that interaction between those characters is just remarkable. It's about them combining forces in a way to achieve something. So this message in this book is also about teamwork in a way as well, about being stronger when you're together rather than being isolated and alone. And they learn that, these characters in this story. And between them, they rejuvenate, develop and grow this garden behind this wall. And as they do that, their friendship kind of blossoms and blooms and grows with the garden. And I like all of that. I like the joy in this book. I like the wonder. I like the magic. I like the messaging. I like everything in this story very much. It's one of those books where you just don't know what to expect because you watch the movies, right? You see the Secret Garden movie and it's been done time and time again. And you hear so much about the story, how it's a classic and it's wonderful. And you have to read it. And you think, well, I'm not sure because, you may enjoy the movie a lot and you think, well, I don't know what to expect about the book. But this book is just special, it's joyful, it's full of wonder, full of magic, just full of light and hope. I loved it very much. The Secret Garden grabs a top 5 position. Can it keep that position? Who knows? You'll Never Know by Caleb Stevens. This book is a perfect example of structure in a plot. It's so well structured and so well controlled. And the 3 different storylines, when you read the book, you've got to be patient with them because at the start you think, well, what's the point of all of them? They seem so distant and so different. But trust me, they do meet and combine and merge later on. And when they do, it's brilliant. You just recognize how well structured the book is. And the characters are so well written in this book. They're amazing. And the mystery with the clues and just what goes on in this story, very well paced, very compelling, very engaging, and this book propels you through the pages. What I also like specifically about this book is there's a great contrast between the first chapter and then the rest of the book. That first chapter is just like an ordinary chapter. It's just ordinary life. It's full of just lightness. It's quite bright. The characters are happy. And then something happens at the end of that chapter, and it's just a very sharp change. It's like just dropping off a cliff into this change, and it's so dramatic, it's so big and so powerful. It just makes that moment jump out of the book and kind of slap you across the face because it's so good in this story. I thought this book was quite extraordinary for the characters and the structure. It's quite thrilling, very engaging, and you don't know what's going to happen towards the end of the book. And when it happens, some parts are a bit over the top towards the end. I think the ending does slip a little bit, but I just think endings are the hardest part to write in a book. So I think I can be too critical sometimes of endings in a story. But anyway, I am critical a little bit about the ending in this book, but I think overall, a great book. This would make a great movie or a TV series. I don't think all books would. I think this book would very much. You'll Never Know, another clever mystery making its way onto the list. Not a high position, but still worthy of being there. Homeland, written by Fernando Aramburu. This is a very quiet book, but about themes and topics that are quite loud. And the way it's written is quite extraordinary. So essentially, it's about the aftermath. After a ceasefire is called by the ETA, after decades of fighting between the ETA and the Spanish government. They call a ceasefire. And it's about 2 families essentially, and about one matriarch in a family trying to get resolution or understand something that happened in the past. And we have history of those families, 2 families as well, and what happened between them and where they are now. And so character driven in this book, and all characters are written so well. What I like about this story though is we have the present day and the past. But the past elements come into the story mostly through memories. And it feels very seamless in the story. It feels more like you're stepping into the mind of the character and recalling with them what happened. So this flows so well and it feels effortless in the story when you read it. It's quite a lengthy book, but it needs to be because there's so much to unpack about the characters and their history and just about the society where they're living or where they lived in the past as well. Because with them, you learn about what they went through all those years ago through the decades. You learn about the society that's dangerous, where if you speak the truth, it could be deadly for you and your family and friends. Where sometimes you have to just go along a path where you may not want to go, but you have to, because to do otherwise is a worse option. I mean, it could be the end of you and the people you love. I thought this book was just extraordinary because of the characters and what happens in their lives. The interactions are perfect. There's so much in this world building in this book. And when I say world building, it is quite historic as well when you go back a few decades. And it feels real because it's about real events and real things in a real area. And these characters feel like they're created like real people, and you feel like you're actually kind of watching a documentary in a way as well sometimes. So for me, extraordinary for all those reasons. Very thought-provoking, very lifelike, very real, and it's one of those books where you feel empathy for all characters. Even characters do horrible things at certain times, you feel empathy for because you understand why they did those things and what led them to that moment. So that's kind of weird in a book sometimes as well, but it works so well in this story. Homeland, a unique book in this list, grabs the top 5 spot. There's only one book to come. Will that book knock one of the top 5 down a peg? Who knows? Kadosei books written by Susuke Natsukawa. This book is essentially about this character, protagonist, who's a teenager. His grandfather dies, and his grandfather owned a bookstore. And now this teenager is alone, so he's being forced to decide to live with an aunt. He doesn't really know that well, but he has to kind of close down this bookstore, sell all the books, close it down, and move with his aunt. So it's all about what happens when he's trying to close that bookstore. And what happens is this cat walks in, this cat called Tiger. And this cat called Tiger, he can be a bit mean sometimes, he can be sarcastic, cynical, but he's also quite humorous and quite funny, and he talks. And he encourages and convinces our protagonist to go on a quest. What we find out is this quest is to save books, to convince people at different stages of this quest, and there's multiple quests, to convince people to once again find the magic in books and reading. And that's what this book is about. It's about friendship, connections, about the magic of books and reading, and also about a talking cat, also about grief and things like that, but all combined into a story that's convincing, compelling, and totally engaging. And I thought this book was just special. There are so many books at the moment like this from Japan, and many of them are being translated in the last few years, where it's all about books, but also about healing, about grieving, about connection, about friendship. And all those things are written in a certain way. And when you read them, when you read these books, they're written in a way that feels quite unique for that region, I think, for that culture. And I enjoy them very much. I've been reading a few of them quite lately. This is one of the more special ones I've read. And I just think this book is quite special. It is the first in a series. I do want to read the second book. I don't know if there's any more in that series or not. But this kind of subgenre of fiction overall, I think is very special. And go out and try them because there's so many of these type of books out there. They all bring something different to the table. Well, the last book didn't reach the top 5, but it's still respectable on the list. Another unique book in the top 20. Now I've gone through all 20 books, my favorite 20 books for 2025. Of course, not from order from 20 to 1, so least favorite to most favorite, but reading order for the year. So now, what were my favorite 5 books for 2025? Let's go through them. At number 5, The Secret Garden. At number 4, The Thin Executioner. At number 3, Homeland. At number 2, War with the Newts. And at number 1, Let the Right One In. One of the things I noted about my top 20 list is the variety. And also in the top 5, each book is so different. I think in 2025, I forced myself to read different books, and also different challenges I had for myself forced that as well. So I read all different types of books I may not have read during the year. And I'm so glad I did because many of the books from challenges ended up being on this list. I think sometimes that's quite special because it branches you out to different styles of reading, and you discover different books, different authors, and you discover maybe different genres. You appreciate different genres as well. So I'm so glad I had those challenges in 2025. So what's in store for 2026? Well, beginning of the year is going to be a bit different. So our house we're building is going to be finished sometime during end of January, early Feb. So there's going to be time spent packing and moving house, all that sort of thing, organizing all different things. So my reading for January, February, maybe even March is going to be a bit interrupted because of that. Even making videos like this may be interrupted as well. So I don't know how much I'll read even during the first few months of 2026. I don't even know if I'll even produce monthly review videos either, like I have in 2025. I have to wait and find out. It just depends on all those things, on how organized we are in moving, all that sort of thing. So unfortunately, because of that, I'm not going to set myself challenges for 2026, especially not at the start of the year. Maybe later on I'll do challenges, I'm not sure. I think 2026 just may be an ordinary reading year of books I want to read. I'll pull books from here and there and read. I'll try to read a few classics, try to read a few different stories as well I normally wouldn't read, but just means a bit of a different kind of approach to reading for 2026, especially during the first few months or maybe the first half of the year anyway. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope some of the books on this list interest you. I hope the kind of twist I did as well with not presenting all the books from number 20 to number 1 was a bit different, a bit intriguing, and maybe even a bit exciting. Let me know what you thought anyway in the comments. On my channel, I review books from all different genres, so check out my channel and subscribe. On the screen now is a link to another video for a book I'm sure you'll enjoy.